The first thing I saw that morning were 3 full-size buses grinding to a stop at the end of my gravel driveway. Diesel engines coughing, sunlight bouncing off their chrome. For a second, I thought maybe a circus had set up overnight. Then my coffee nearly slipped from my hand. Doors hissed open, and out poured a small army. Families with coolers, kids dragging floaties, older folks unfolding lawn chairs like it was their God-given right to picnic in my pasture. And then I saw it. A huge banner strung between the buses reading, HOA Summer Extravaganza. Thank you to our generous host. That was the moment my jaw hit the floor. I didn't need 3 guesses to know who was behind this. Karen, queen bee of the HOA across the highway. The same Karen who'd spent a year trying to rope my land into her little kingdom of dues and rules. Apparently, she decided my property was a community park now. Let me make one thing clear. My land had never, not once, been part of their HOA. It was my grandfather's land, handed down through 3 generations, and I intended to keep it that way. But Karen had other plans. She'd send me letters about my unauthorized goats, the wrong shade of red on my barn, and my non-compliant mailbox. Every week she'd invent a new rule I was supposedly breaking. I ignored her, right up until that morning, when she rolled in with 3 buses full of trespassers. What nobody knew was that I'd already had enough weeks ago. I'd reinforced my steel gate, rerouted my camera feeds, and installed a remote lock I could control from my phone. So I stood there on my porch, watching them unload grills and folding tables, like they were colonizing Mars. Karen strutted to front, decked in a neon pink pantsuit that could be seen from orbit, barking orders into a megaphone. She called the event a victory over selfishness. Her crowd clapped like she was hosting a parade. They set up speakers, coolers, and bunting as if my pasture was a town square. And me? I just sipped my coffee. At exactly 9 a.m., I tapped my phone. The gate clanged shut with metallic thunk that echoed across the field. Suddenly, those bus drivers realized they were fenced in. Karen's expression drained faster than a busted water main. She tried to recover, claiming through her megaphone that this was public land and they had every right to be there. But the panic was setting in. A bus driver wandered over, hat in hand, and muttered, "Sir, we were told this was a public event." "Then you were told wrong." I said, "Calm as a Sunday morning. Nobody's leaving until the sheriff sorts this out." Even the goats grazing in the distance started bleating like they knew this was about to turn biblical. The mood shifted fast. Parents began whispering. Kids clutched half-inflated pool toys. Karen stormed toward the gate, voice cracking. "Open this right now," she hissed. "You're making a huge mistake. You brought 3 buses of trespassers onto private land." I told her, "If anyone made a mistake, it's you." Behind her, murmurs spread through the crowd. People realizing they'd been conned. Some began folding up chairs. Others simply stared at her, waiting for an explanation she didn't have. Karen doesn't fold easily, though. People like her never do. She escalates. Good thing I planned for that. Cameras were rolling. Motion sensors were armed. And I had a few surprises ready in case she tried anything wild. By 10, the sun was hot. Kids were whining, and the crowd's patience was gone. Karen, meanwhile, ran from group to group, shouting into her phone, calling county officials, HOA members, anyone who'd listen. Her pink pantsuit, once a symbol of command, now looked like a flag of surrender. A county zoning officer showed up, apparently a guest at the event. He leaned against a tree, arms crossed, lips pursed, watching the chaos like a man deciding whether to take notes or popcorn. Let me rewind for a moment. When the subdivision first popped up across the highway, I tried to be neighborly. But Karen didn't want neighbors. She wanted subjects. It started with fake friendly smiles, then letters, then threats. She once ticketed my own truck for parking near my own barn. When I refused to join her HOA, she made me the villain of her monthly meetings. That's why I built the gate. Not to shut people out, but to make it clear there was a line. And that morning, she crossed it. By the time the sheriff arrived, blue lights flashing, news vans trailing behind, the scene looked like the finale of a bad reality show. Karen rushed him like a contestant fighting eviction. "Officer, he's holding us hostage," she shrieked into her megaphone. The sheriff gave her a long look. Then he turned to me. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "why exactly are you on his property?" Karen's words stumbled over each other. She babbled about community land and shared rights. When the sheriff asked for a deed, she had nothing. I handed mine over, title, survey, tax records, the whole file. He nodded once. "That's all I need." You could feel the air shift. The crowd turned on her. People shouted, "You lied to us, and we paid for this." Some packed up silently. Others demanded refunds. News cameras caught every word. The sheriff pulled me aside. "You want to press charges?" "Not today," I said. "Just get them off my land." So he did. He ordered everyone back on the buses. Karen tried to rally them, shouting about injustice, but no one was listening. Parents dragged kids, people avoided her eyes, and the buses rumbled back to life. The last image I saw was Karen standing alone by the gate, her hair plastered to her face, makeup streaked, clipboard trembling in her hand. "You've humiliated me," she spat. I looked her straight in the eye. "No," I said, "you did that yourself. I just locked the gate." When the buses pulled away and the last camera truck vanished, silence finally returned. My pasture was empty again, except for the soft munching of goats. Dust settled. The morning heat rose, and I felt that strange, steady pulse of justice. Quiet, earned, and final, but I should have known better. Karen wasn't done. People like her never are. By the next morning, I'd barely finished feeding the goats when my phone started buzzing like a hornet's nest. First call, some lawyer claiming to represent the HOA community and threatening to sue me for unlawful detention. Second, a local reporter asking for an exclusive interview about the viral pasture incident. Third, a text from the zoning officer. She's calling an emergency board meeting. Brace yourself. Karen had lost the battle, but she was gearing up for war. Over the next few days, she unleashed everything she had. Drones flew over my field to document violations. Envelopes stuffed with new compliance letters appeared in my mailbox. She filed zoning complaints, noise complaints, and even tried to claim my goats were a health hazard. Every day brought a fresh stack of paper and a fresh wave of nonsense. But what Karen didn't realize was paper leaves a trail. Every false claim, every misuse of HOA funds, every recorded call, all added up, and my cameras had caught everything. The local news couldn't get enough of it. HOA hostage drama, they called it. Clips of her yelling through the megaphone played on repeat, cut between shots of confused families hauling coolers back to buses. Comment sections lit up with people calling her Pasture Karen and Queen of Overreach. At first, she tried to play the martyr, posting videos about standing up for community integrity and combating rural selfishness. But the internet has a way of digging deeper than anyone expects. Pretty soon, leaked HOA email surfaced, showing she'd authorized the entire event with HOA funds. Thousands of dollars spent on bus rentals, catering, and that massive banner, all without board approval. That was the beginning of the end. Within a week, the HOA board voted her out as president. 2 members resigned on the spot. A letter arrived at my door, signed by dozens of residents who had been on those buses. It said, "We're deeply sorry for trespassing. We were misled. If you ever need us to testify, we will." Reading that, something in me eased. It wasn't me versus a crowd anymore. It was just me versus Karen. And for the first time, she was standing alone. But even stripped of power, she didn't let go. She parked near my driveway for hours, pretending to walk her dog. She sent strangers to inspect my property. She even mailed anonymous threats typed in all caps. It was obsessive, pathetic, and a little scary. So I went through official channels, filed reports, submitted footage, stayed patient. When the county finally issued a restraining order, it felt like closing a book that had gone on far too long. And just to seal the deal, the county planning office sent me a formal certification. This property is privately owned and cannot, under any circumstances, be incorporated into any existing HOA. Framed it, hung it right above my coffee maker. For a while, it was quiet. News crews moved on. People stopped calling, and the goats went back to being the noisiest things on the property. I rebuilt the section of fence they'd trampled and let the grass grow tall again. But that experience has stuck with me. The absurdity of it all, the buses, the banners, the entitlement. It was never just about land. It was about lines, where one person's control ends and another's rights begin. A few weeks later, a local civic group invited me to speak at a community meeting about property rights. I wasn't much for speeches, but I went anyway. I stood up there, looking at a room full of neighbors, some from Karen's old subdivision, some from farms like mine, and I told the story plain. No anger, no theatrics, just what happened. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then someone stood and said, "You were right to stand your ground." Another added, "We should have stopped her sooner." Then a group of kids came up after, asking if they could visit the goat someday. That, more than anything, felt like closure, not a victory, not revenge, just peace. Now, every evening, I sit on the porch with my coffee as the sun sinks behind the pasture. The steel gate catches the last light, shining like a quiet symbol of patience and boundaries well kept. The goats roam free, tails flicking in the gold haze. The land hums with its own steady rhythm again, mine as it's always been. Sometimes I think about Karen, where she ended up, what she tells herself now. Maybe she's still convinced she was right. Maybe she's just moved on to another neighborhood to rule. But I learned something from her, something worth more than the headache she caused. If you're going to defend what's yours, don't do it with rage. Do it with proof, patience, and quiet conviction. Because truth doesn't shout. It just stands. And when you've got the truth on your side, all you need is a locked gate and the will to wait. Yeah, it happened. Now tell me, what would you have done if 3 buses full of HOA members rolled onto your land? Would you have locked the gate too? Because sometimes the difference between chaos and peace is just one tap on your phone and the courage to stand your ground.